you have an agenda and minutes?
I have an agenda.
Good evening, and welcome to the Thursday, October 26th Committee Meeting of Public Works. I now call this meeting to order. Please be advised that FATV is conducting an audio and video recording of this meeting for public broadcast. I ask anyone else in the audience who is recording this meeting to please identify themselves for the record now by stating your name and the city of residence. I see no one. At this time, I ask that all electronic devices be placed in the silent mode. Tonight in attendance, we have Councillor Boschman, Councillor Schultz, Councillor Cragen, and Attorney Pusateri. I invite anybody in the audience wishing to speak to please approach the podium, identify themselves, name and address, and identify the agenda item on which you would like to speak. At this meeting, the way I like to do this meeting is I'd like to have the people speak just before their item comes in front of us. So, I see one person wishing to speak, and his item is actually the first item on the agenda. So let's begin the meeting by voting to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion to approve minutes of the previous meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll take this by unanimous consent, even though we all said aye. DPW updates.
Okay, so I'm going to go division by division as I have in the past. So if you have any specific questions, I ask that you wait until the end of a given division, and then we can kind of go back and through any questions that come up. So the first is the engineering division. Right now, the engineering division is short-staffed. We've got one person out of 4 spots filled. And so Ryan Killeen is a one-man show right now. So that is limiting some of the production out of that office. That being said, we have 4 different contracts that we're working on right now. The much-anticipated Clarendon Street reconstruction contract, a 3-year on-call paving contract, a 3-year on-call construction contract, and a 3-year on-call pavement preservation contract. Pavement preservation is the contract through which we do crack sealing and whatnot. So that's it for engineering. I'll pause there. Any questions?
Paul?
Can I ask a question? In the engineering department, since we're shorthanded, how long have you been shorthanded for?
We've been shorthanded in various capacities for quite a while, actually. Most recently, Jeff Hillman was our civil engineer, and he's taken the role of superintendent of streets. So right now, he's trying to help out as much as he can, but as you know, that superintendent of streets position is very labor intensive. So he's not finding quite as much time to keep things moving as we need. But we've advertised for positions. The pool of candidates that we've gotten back is not large. We've actually made an offer to an engineer, but he was unable to pass his pre-employment physical, so we had to go back to the drawing board on that one. And he was actually anticipated to start this month, so that was kind of a tough thing to deal with.
Can I add?
I yield the floor for now. Go ahead.
Councillor Schultz?
Yeah, what's the status, Nick, on Clarendon Street? Because I've been asked about that.
My goal is to get it to purchasing any day now. Really, I need a solid 2 to 3 days to just sit down and finish off the remainder of the edits. And then once we get it in purchasing's hands, then they begin the public bid process, which starts with an advertisement in the Central Register, and then soliciting bids for that work. And then we review the bids, make a decision to award based on the apparent low responsible bidder. And then from there, we would plan out the actual schedule of that work.
Is there enough time to do it before the asphalt companies close this year, or you're looking at the spring?
Not this winter, or this fall, rather. The issue there is that we've got a lot of sidewalk work that needs to be done first, and sourcing that granite potentially will take a little bit of time. And I'm fairly certain we were here last October saying the same thing, and I understand that it's been delayed a year, and I do apologize for that, but the staffing shortages are what they are.
Anybody else?
And you told me that Wrangell, underneath the grant, is going to be done next year, right, this sidewalk?
Yes. So we received a grant from I believe it's Mass DOT's Shared Streets and Spaces grant program. So the goal is to get that work done next construction season. That has a grant deadline of December 31st, 2024.
Now, Madam Chair, I just want to make it very clear. I'm not going to be, I already told you once, I'm going to make it very well clear that I'm working towards that all sidewalk repair, not kind of repairs, but new sidewalk construction be farmed out. It takes too long. You don't have the manpower, and we have to face the facts. And it's taking too long. You're taking crews offhand. We got too much work in the city to do, and you can't handle it all. So something's being left behind, and I watched the project in his ward, and it took months on end to get it done. So I'm going to make it well known that I'm not supporting new sidewalk construction by DPW, that if we do it, we farm it out, or I won't support the projects. Takes too long.
I think if it's concrete and granite and it's a pretty substantial section of sidewalk, it does take a long time for our crews to do it. We're kind of jack of all trades, masters of none. We do have certain employees that are very good with concrete and granite, but we get pulled in a lot of different directions. So I agree that our crews really should be focused on smaller repairs, an occasional ADA ramp here and there, those types of things that are easy for us to just get done in a matter of a couple days. Large-scale sidewalk projects, I agree, are better farmed out. It gets done more quickly, more efficiently, and I think it's a better move for the city. So I agree.
I yield the floor.
Thank you. Just a question on that. Just to begin, is it a budgetary issue that we can't farm it out?
Typically, we'd like to try to do the work in-house because it is more cost-effective. If you're farming it out to a consultant, you're paying higher costs. There's usually a 15% overhead and profit built into contracts at a minimum. So it is cheaper to do it in-house. But I think in the end, we end up paying for that with time. Our guys are tied up longer and unable to move on to other projects that are needed throughout the city. So,
Thank you. Any more questions?
I yield the floor. Make a motion, will you accept?
I think Nick hasn't fully expressed the challenges he's had to hire the people that he needs in that department, and having competitive wages and making offers to folks and thinking they're accepting them, and then them finding a better offer elsewhere, and losing the opportunity and all the time that he invested in posting for interviewing and trying to hire those positions. So to come in routinely and say, I'm understaffed, there's 1,000 reasons why, and it's not for taking the time to try to, and devoting the resources that are made available to that department to hire the right people for those positions. I just wanted to follow up on that.
I agree, and it's really not for lack of trying on our end as DPW, on human resources, and we've advertised the jobs, we've interviewed. Interviews take hours and hours and hours for candidates. There's been a couple of weeks in recent months that 20, 30 hours is spent on just the interviewing process. So it's difficult, it's time consuming, and it's very frustrating when we get to the end of a process and we still don't have a suitable candidate. So we're trying different things to try to attract talent and attract applicants. And we'll get there eventually, but it's definitely a process.
And unfortunately, it's not isolated to Fitchburg.
It's not.
It's everybody, every company trying to get people in, and then when you think they're going to take the job, boom, they pull out and go somewhere else. So
I think as a municipality, we're particularly disadvantaged because the private sector, following the pandemic, has kind of jumped ahead of the municipal sector, and it's difficult for us to catch up due to fixed budgets and et cetera. So.
Okay, you can continue on then. Was that it for the?
Okay, so that was engineering division.
Yeah.
Try to move through this a little bit more quickly. So streets division, as Councilor Boschman mentioned, we finished up a fairly large sidewalk project behind the senior center on Elm Street. It included ADA ramps and new sidewalk. Right now we've got basically a super crew and a half up on Pearl Hill Road trying to make some repairs to some of the washouts that we had over the course of the summer with all the rain that we received. We recently repaired a pretty large sinkhole on Plymouth Street, which involved locating a drain manhole that was underneath a massive chunk of granite. We had to do some investigation there to try to find it, to give us access to make those repairs. We've conducted sidewalk repairs and berm repairs in various locations throughout the city over the course of the summer, including on Daniel Street and Will Thompson's Way. And the last item that I'd like to mention is that we do have a new superintendent of streets. His name is Jeff Hillman. He's our former civil engineer. So we're very excited to finally have him on board in this new role. And hopefully we'll be able to backfill his former position fairly quickly. But obviously we're dealing with the challenges we just described. So any questions on the streets division stuff?
Just a comment.
I noticed since he took over the new job, he lost weight. He's getting crabby. And he has to deal with me.
Well, I did note the other day that those water gates on the
St. Joe's.
intersection of St. Joe's and LaGrosse Street got taken care of.
I
so.
saw that, yes. Thank you.
And Pearl Hill Road is looking wonderful. I detoured off my route to take a ride on Pearl Hill, and it's
Great.
looking great.
We're
Thank
trying
you.
to do what we can with the limited funds that we do have available for this type of work. So
Well, Pearl Hill Road residents appreciate it, and they thank you.
it really needs a full new drainage system, full depth reconstruction, et cetera.
Yeah.
But we do not have $2 million laying around for that, unfortunately. So we're trying to
Agreed.
make the best of it.
Councilor Cole?
I was going to ask, just for the benefit of those who are watching, our former superintendent of streets, Gary Withington, served with distinguished ability for a really long time. But for the benefit of everyone watching, could you define the role of the superintendent of streets, portrays in the public works?
Sure. So the superintendent of streets manages 25 full-time equivalents. So that's, for all intents and purposes, 25 staff members, and that includes our streets division crew and then mechanics who work in our garage. And they're responsible for the entire DPW fleet except for cemetery, water, and wastewater. So the superintendent oversees all of the sidewalk and road repairs throughout the city, and then snow and ice during the wintertime. So it's a very responsible position. And there's a lot involved with that. And there's other subsets of tasks that, I'm sure I'm not remembering, but, signs and lines, traffic signals, all that stuff that comes along with roadways.
Right, and again, this is work that's accountable to the state. It's not just to the city. These are to state-level standards that must be met.
Right, correct.
I wanted to echo Councillor Fleming's comments. Franklin Road, fantastic. Really, really great. Residents are very pleased. People passing through are pleased. Thank you.
Yeah, and so unfortunately, I can't take the credit for that one. We worked in partnership with Unitil. The road was actually repaved as part of their trench restoration requirements. So I don't know if you've noticed, but over the past several years, they'll repave an entire swath, approximately 8 feet wide or so, to cover their trench. So because of the condition of Electric Ave and Franklin Road, especially in that section, we worked with them to make sure they paved curb to curb instead of just a portion of the roadway. So we'd like to do the other sections of Franklin and Electric, but there are outstanding utility and sidewalk issues in those sections. So we're going to have to wait a year or two until that work is complete before we can actually get in there and finish paving those roads.
Yeah, Nick, could we get an update on the culverts that we had such a problem with in July, the one on Hobson Street and also the one near Nicodemus Field?
So the Hobson Street culvert, it's working as designed right now. It's flowing freely. What we need to do there is find some source of funding to conduct an H&H, hydrologic and hydraulic analysis, to determine what size it really should be, and then pursue some sort of funding to implement that design. That culvert was constructed many, many years ago, and it runs through private properties without easements. So that in particular is going to be a challenge when we go to implement a revised design there. So that's still on our radar. I think the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Grant Program is a good fit for that type of work. And they usually open up their application period in the spring. So, February, March timeframe, we'll be looking at that and trying to prepare a grant application. Nicodemus Field, football season just concluded. So we still have outstanding repairs downstream of where that large sinkhole was at the intersection of Franklin and Rollstone. So we fixed the intersection and we got the pavement restored, but there's still issues with the section of culvert downstream that runs underneath Nicodemus Field and then ultimately discharges to Park Hill. So once we have an on-call contractor on board, we've got a very clearly defined scope of work and a method of repair that will assign to whomever that contractor might be. And we were waiting until A, that contractor is on board, and B, football season was complete to undertake that work.
So will you be pursuing that this fall?
Likely this fall or next spring. Right now, it's getting a little late in the year, so we'll see if the weather cooperates. There is one sinkhole that's starting to form again just downstream of our repair, right along the fence line there. So there are still outstanding issues there. What we have is the bottom of the culvert washed out, and all the gravel backfill material on the outside of the culvert is starting to wash out from inside underneath those walls. So that's where you get the sinkholes forming. So we've got to get in there, excavate essentially every 100 feet or so, install manhole access points, and then get down inside that culvert and re-pour that bottom floor and underpin the walls of the culvert. So it's not an easy task. It's very labor intensive. It's a job that's best fitted for a third-party contractor, not our staff. So there's definitely going to be some time and expense associated with it.
Yeah, probably it sounds like it's not going to happen until the spring rather than the fall.
Most likely, yes. Yeah.
More questions? What's that? Councilor Boishman?
I think when you talk about repairs, I saw some things on TikTok or Facebook where they put this chemical inside pipes and it expands, but it stays a hole in the middle and it puts a wall like reinforcement. Are you looking at that kind of work?
So we've considered that type of work, and we use that method of repair throughout the city. In fact, the combined sewer separation project that's ongoing right now, they're utilizing that pipelining technique in a few areas to rehabilitate some of the sewers. And we'll be utilizing that downtown with the next phase of our combined sewer separation work. And we've thought about it for this particular culvert underneath Nicodemus Field, but the geometry is kind of odd. It's a rectangular box culvert, and the sides and the top are actually in really good shape. So it's really just the bottom and underneath those walls that needs to be fixed. So we think we can do it on a more cost-effective scale by using the method that I just described instead of getting in there and actually lining that. The section upstream from where we made that repair at the intersection of Franklin and Rollstone is actually in pretty good condition. We've had that camera inspected to make sure that there's no other issues there. So I think what's really happening is that all of the salt from winter snow and ice treatments is getting down into the culvert at that intersection because there's a lot of pavement there, and that's what's caused the concrete in the bottom of the culvert to erode and wash out. So when we do go pour a new floor, we have to make sure that we use an additive in that concrete mixture that's resistant to salt. But upstream from there, there's really not much pavement that contributes. It's Sand Brook, actually, that comes down off the hill over there, goes underneath Electric Ave, underneath the cemetery, and then underneath Franklin and Rollstone, and then underneath the football field and out to the park.
All right. I yield the floor.
Thank you. Any more updates?
That is Streets Division. So moving on to the Water Division, we've got the Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition Project ongoing. So that's a project to replace all of the control and telemetry systems at the 2 treatment plants and various remote sites scattered throughout the water supply and distribution systems. So right now the work is nearly complete at the Falula water treatment plant. That plant has actually been offline while that work is being conducted. So once that plant is back online and all the bugs are worked out, then they plan to move over to the regional treatment plant that we have in Westminster. And regional is the critical plant. That's the one that supplies the majority of the city. We can run the whole city off of the regional plant, but we cannot run the whole city off of the Falula plant. So we're excited to finally get this project done. It's been delayed for many, many years. I started working on this project in 2019, or maybe even a little bit sooner, but due to COVID and various supply chain issues, that project's been delayed. In addition to that, we have water main designs ongoing for Main Street and Boulder Drive. And once those designs are complete, we anticipate going out to bid. Boulder Drive will likely go out to bid sometime this winter or early spring, and the Main Street will follow probably the construction season after. But some of that still remains to be seen because we're trying to coordinate with other utility work in that area, particularly the combined sewer separation project and some of Unitil's gas main replacement work. So the schedule there is very, very much still TBD. And the last bullet for the water division is the Oak Hill Tank project has finally been complete. The Oak Hill Tank has been completely demolished and reconstructed, and that system is now back online. So we're very excited. All of the water storage tanks in the city are now in very good condition and should be good for the next 50 to 100 years. So that's a huge thing to have complete finally after all these years of working on those. Any questions on the water division?
All yours.
Got a question. I'm hoping, Vinnie, I hope you listen to this.
I think you spoke twice already.
I hope when we start doing the work on Main Street and Boulder Drive, that we're informing businesses that Main Street or Boulder Drive may be down for a while, even though they're open for business. You know how people are. They don't like to travel where there's construction work and everything else. And I'm hoping that the city, if there's somebody new who wants to come into the city and they're planning on opening up a business on Main Street, that we're telling them that next year and the year after, or the year after that, we'll be shutting down Main Street, or Boulder Drive, so be prepared for construction work. I'm hoping that we're doing that, and not come back and say, well, I didn't know. You know what I mean? I'm not finding fault with you.
I've been advertising it, any opportunity that I get. DPW personally has very limited interaction with the businesses, so we kind of rely on other departments within the city to help with that. But as there was with the combined sewer separation work that's under construction right now, there will be a strong outreach campaign ahead of that work. And I encourage all city councilors, any city employees to spread the news that there will be utility work in the Main Street area for the next 3 to 4 years. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, because after the utility work is done, that's when new paving happens and sidewalk work and lighting and all that good stuff. So,
Did you hear that, Vinnie?
Just to describe the outreach, is personally visiting businesses and providing them informational pamphlets, and putting out street signs in the old traditional sense of those yellow lettered signs advising the motorists, particularly those that regularly use those roadways. They're being notified well in advance, and other outreach processes are being used. Not a complete list.
Anybody else? Thank you.
all right, on to the wastewater division. So one major bullet point, it's just the ongoing combined sewer separation work that we have on Main Street. That project encompasses the sewer shed, so to speak, from approximately Ashburnham Hill Road to the west, Prospect Street to the east, and Main Street to the south. So that whole area kind of above the western end of Main Street there. So the work that necessitates the detour will be complete by the end of November. Right now we're on track to meet that goal. Today, West Street was milled as part of that project. West Street, if you've driven that recently, was in terrible, terrible condition, probably one of the worst in the city. I don't recall offhand what the PCI score was for that road, but I believe it was sub 20, which is a very low PCI score. And by PCI, I mean Pavement Condition Index score. That's what we use to grade all of the roads in the city. So after the work on Main Street is done, Polito Construction will move to some of the areas further upstream. Typically with combined sewer separation work, you start at the downstream end and you work your way upstream. So that's what's happening there. They'll have one crew on board for the remainder of this construction season to finish out that Main Street work, to make sure that the detour can reopen Main Street. Right now, they're working on putting back the roundabout there at the intersection of Main and River. And then they'll move up into some of those other neighborhoods, and they'll continue their work next spring, whatever they're not able to get to this construction season. And then next spring, after all that work is done, there will be a handful of streets that are part of that project area that will be repaved. I don't have the list with me right now. I believe there was a Facebook post about the roads that will be repaved as part of this project that went out earlier this week. So if anyone's interested, I can get you that list.
That would be great, yeah.
But
Email it to us.
it's quite a number of streets. So we're happy that that's getting taken care of. And it's not full depth reconstruction. It's essentially permanent trench restoration, but it's curb to curb. So it will provide a smoother wearing course for residents driving those streets.
Thank you. Councilor Boishman.
Now, two things. How deep are we going? About an inch and a half?
Depends on the road. West Street was a 2-inch mill because it was in such bad shape. Most of the other roads are an inch and a half, yes.
Now, let me ask you a question, because it was brought up to me from some people, residents. West Street, I drove on West Street because I drive up there because there's a lot of trash that people drop off. You know that, and I know that.
Yeah.
Are we making a big mistake by doing West Street, really? Now we're going to divert all the traffic to Greektown, to Arlington Street, all the way up to, I think it's Arlington Street, Main Street to West Street, and we're going to divert Route 12 traffic to make it go that way, and then they go on Wallace Ave. Why aren't we trying to keep all the traffic on Route 12 and make the secondary so the neighborhoods could stay the same? Instead of trying to improve I want to improve the streets, don't get me wrong, but I don't want 100,000 cars going through my neighborhood to save 10 minutes, because now I can go 60 miles an hour versus 40 miles an hour, because the road's marvelous, and I can get on Wallace Ave and even go another 60 till I hit the stop sign.
I think West Street is commonly used as a cut through from that neighborhood kind of north of Maine over to West Fitchburg. So given the construction work that's planned for the next couple of years, Mass DOT is going to be coming in and redoing the River Street Bridge. So there's a need to detour traffic around that work through whatever route people prefer. Some people would prefer to go West Street, depending on their geography, north of Main Street. Other people might prefer to use Route 12, Kimball Street. So what we're trying to do is give people options, give our emergency responders options, give our DPW staff that need to drive these roads every day to access construction sites options. And it gives us some sort of redundancy too. Say there's a motor vehicle accident on Route 12 or 2A or whatever that shuts it down. Now we have West Street as a way to detour traffic around, and it's not like driving through a third world country anymore. It'll be driving like a regular road. So those are some of the reasons. I've heard people come to me and say, hey, West Street doesn't have a lot on it. We should just abandon it and save us from future maintenance requirements there. And I agree with that to a certain extent. But being someone that grew up on Williams Road, which is right up there, I used West Street almost daily, even when Main Street wasn't closed and River Street wasn't closed. So I think the point of view that's been described to you represents only a certain portion of the people in the city. And I think there's other people in the city that would prefer to see West Street stay open and be maintained and repaved. So we've got to consider all the viewpoints, not just a few.
Yeah.
Okay. We continue?
Okay. So that was wastewater division. Last two are fairly quick. So Parks division, park staff has shifted over to fall cleanups, irrigation system blowouts, closing up the pool and the splash pads. Not a whole lot to report there. We are understaffed right now in the Parks division just due to some injuries. One of our guys has been out for a couple of months due to back surgery. There's only 4 people in the division, so if one guy's out, that's 25% of your workforce right there. So it's been a little challenging to keep up with everything. As we get into the winter season, parks guys have a little bit less to do, but they do help out with snow and ice removal, clearing sidewalks, working on the bridges, and then getting their equipment ready for the spring. So we're excited to have that individual come back. He's slated to return within the next couple of weeks. And once again, we'll be fully staffed there. Any question on Parks Division? Okay. And then finally, we have Cemetery Division. So the DPW last construction season completed the new Memorial Gardens expansion. That's the area right across from Memorial Middle School. The only outstanding piece of work there is the pathway paving, which we anticipate to happen likely next spring. We're also going to be looking at 2 other expansions, one in the columbarium area. So columbarium are those large granite structures that house urns. So we're looking to expand that in the area adjacent to Memorial Gardens. And then we're looking to potentially install double-stacked grave vaults in the area right near Rollstone and Mount Elam, that corner of the cemetery right there. So that should buy us a little bit of additional time. We are running out of room in the cemetery, and we'll need to look towards a future expansion, which I think we've all discussed in the past. Right now, the city owns a piece of property across Electric Avenue, so it's going to be expensive to develop that parcel, but right now that seems to be the only feasible spot to implement that larger scale expansion. We've started the process of evaluating the needed repairs to the mausoleum at Forest Hill. So we've got an owner's project manager and an architectural firm on board, and they're going to start looking at the repair needs for that, to get a better handle on what our design plans will look like, what the costs associated with those repairs will be, and then we'll have to figure out a funding source to pay for those repairs. The mausoleum right now is in very poor condition due to roof leaks and water intrusion issues over the past 50 years or so. We've kind of band-aided over a few of these issues over the years, and it's getting to the point where the band-aids just aren't working anymore. So that's another major project for the city. And then the last bullet point I have here is we're noticing in Section Q, which is the area we expanded a couple of years ago, right next to Electric Ave, we're dealing with a lot of groundwater issues there. So engineering is working on taking a look at that and trying to come up with ways we can potentially lower groundwater elevations in that area.
That's not good.
So that's it. Any questions on Cemetery Division?
Councilor Schultz?
On the mausoleum, Nick, we're still looking at millions rather than thousands to repair the mausoleum, right?
Correct. Essentially, the process is first step is hiring the OPM, Owner's Project Manager, which we have done, and that's a requirement under Chapter 149 of the Public Procurement Law. Second step is conducting a request for qualifications process to select an architect, which we've gone through that process and selected an architect. So now that architect is on board with a scope of work and a fee to conduct a needs assessment for that mausoleum. So the next step after they've conducted their needs assessment is to put together a bid package, essentially, with all of the repairs needed included in that bid package, and that would include plans and specifications. And then once we have funding for that, which right now we're estimating somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million as a rough number, we would go out to bid with that, get a contractor on board, and they would perform those repairs.
Thank you, Nick.
Councilor Boatman?
Question. You said OPM, you call him OPM? How come
OPM,
that-
yeah.
We hired a guy for that particular reason, so he can go to take over some of these jobs so we could save money. How come we don't use him? Russ?
So Russ has been instrumental in helping through each of these steps in the process. But my understanding is, as the facilities director, he'll help us procure that owner's project manager. But for one reason or another, and I'm not clear on exactly why, but I don't think he's allowed to serve as that owner's project manager. But he has been very helpful in helping us navigate the process, working on the scopes of work that we've advertised to get these consultants on board. So thank him for his help so far.
Well, can I direct my question to the man on the right?
Yes.
I thought you said at that table, I thought the whole purpose of us hiring that guy, Russ, was to do things like that, so we wouldn't have to hire an OPM underneath so much money, underneath millions of dollars.
So I don't remember every conversation that went into hiring Russ, but I do think that if we're expecting Russ is going to be an owner's project manager on every repair project in the city, we would have to hire 3 or 4 Russes to do that. The projects that you've got going on in the city right now, just off the top of my head, would be the windows just are still tightening up at the Crocker School. We're getting ready, Longs Joe, we're getting ready for the boiler. We've got this mausoleum project. We've got the whole Crocker School redevelopment project. You've got the library temporary space. You've got the library project, and there are more. So it would be a feat. I think we would have Russ, we need a cot in the City Hall, and I don't think it's zoned for residential. So.
And if I can interrupt, Councilor Cragan can add to that.
I would like to do that. Thank you, Councilor Fleming. Councilor Boschman, during the decade plus that we did all of our school repairs, the Fitchburg Public Schools had a facility director. And that facility director's role was to work directly with OPM, work directly with the teams, individuals coming in and overseeing it. It is not. Russ Carlstad is an exceptionally talented individual, and I hope he's watching, but because he comes in with enormous credentials, and we want someone with enormous credentials to look at these extremely varied projects. The mausoleum is over here. Crocker School is over here. Like the library is in the middle. The expectations that the residents have of the use of those areas are completely different. I also wanted to put forward that that there are many communities, and Cambridge springs to mind, that actually have a nonprofit, basically a Friends of Public Burial Grounds group that forms. And that is something that is a missing piece of everything to do with the mausoleum and the expansion. We do have some, we have many families whose family members are at Forest Hill. And I think that it needs leadership to initiate a nonprofit that would be Friends of Forest Hill Cemetery. Again, the cemetery broke ground in 1854. It is filled with Civil War veterans, Spanish War veterans, World War I veterans, up to the present day. So I just wanted to put that out there to the public. Please, if you are interested, if you want to learn more, get in touch with me directly or call City Hall, and I'll tell them to let me know, because we need a nonprofit to really assist. That's a huge job. That mausoleum is an immense building, and there's plenty of space that you could still be interred. But I hope that clears it up. I mean, we have someone who's overseeing, and thank goodness we do. But it's not their role to be, on site like that.
Well, not to rebuttal, but one thing I want to make it clear. I understand what Sally's counsel is saying to my left, but the way it was explained to us, Russ wasn't going to be up at Crocker Elementary School. That's a bigger project, and that needs an OPM. But a project that was 3 or 4 million below, or 5 million below, that he was going to do that kind of work. That's the way I understood it when the mayor proposed it to us, because I was the one that voted against him, because I said all it is a Christmas wish. And we're not using Russ to his fullest potential, as we stand right now. As I see it, we're not using Russ as his fullest potential. So, but I'm not going to debate that. We'll debate that at a city council meeting, because he wants to get home and watch the debate. So don't I.
Yeah.
Final words on that, Councilor Boschman. After November 8th, I talk to Russ every week, and I talk to him about all manner of things. And he's one of my go-to people to just check in with, because of having done building needs at the schools. I would be very happy to go and talk to Russ, and the 3 of us talk to Russ, because I always learn when I talk to Russ, and I think it would be helpful. We have so many capital projects right now. They're all important.
Thank you, Councilor
That's it.
Reagan.
You're welcome.
And that's it. That was my last division.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very informative.
Yep.
I'd actually like to entertain a motion to take this agenda out of order since we have Attorney Avini here. Thank you. And Council and City Solicitor Busateri, to take 12823 out of order.
So motion to take 123, 128 out of order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Councilor Boishman?
I said aye.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear, I'm sorry. Thank you. So 12823, City Councilor Vincent Pusataria to lay out and accept as gift or donation as public way a certain parcel of land known as Ethia Street Extension, also known as Ethia Street, as described in the attached plan.
So I'm just fill us into the background of where we are. We have identified, with the help of the DPW Commissioner, some streets that seem to have been left behind and that our residents are expecting the city of Fitchburg would accept as public ways. We developed a 34-step process that deals with coordinating all the different departments on getting these streets accepted. And right now, our focus has been to run Ethia Street through the street acceptance process. The street acceptance process has come to this committee on a prior occasion, and a prior DPW commissioner identified 2 fees that were outstanding. One was a detention pond fee, was to be paid at the time of the application for the building permit, and one was a infiltration and inflow, or also known as an I&I fee, to help with stormwater and infiltrating the sewer system. We looked at the language in the special permit or the permit that the developer received. I reviewed that with the commissioner, and we determined that there was no I&I fee ever set on the developer, nor were there any specific infiltration or inflow work other than the general connection that the developer had done to connect the neighborhood to the sewer system, which is fine, and that is in good working order. The developer has done above and beyond, has done additional work. The developer did sidewalks on the pre-existing portion of Ethia Street. The developer did some landscaping, construction of a stone wall on the intersection of Ethia Street, the entrance to Ethia Street, and did some other landscaping in the area, and did some other work even after the permit had issued. The developer did, as far as we can tell from the city records, not pay a fee. As a matter of fact, I had written to the developer about this, I'm going to say back in 2019. I think we looked at this fee, and we it gets to a point where how far back can the city collect a fee? That matter was brought to this committee. That issue was referred to the planning board. Planning board said the fee's still due over the developer's objection. The developer and I have continued to have a conference about the issue. It's a $4,500 fee. In the one hand, we have our constituency who lives on Ethia Street, who are currently enjoying public services on a private road. They're getting their trash picked up, they're having their street plowed. There's probably minor street repair that's happened up there. I'm sure the commissioner could speak to that more than I could. On the other hand, you have the desire to collect a fee for the city of Fitchburg. So, and then the third interest is the contractor who is saying, you guys have held my $25,000 for 15 years, Attorney Avini?
It's close to 15 years.
15 years now, in a performance bond. Commissioner has reviewed the street. I think many have. It had come up to City Council before. It seems to be clear from all perspectives that the street's in good condition. Detention pond was recently rehabilitated by the developer at the request of the Department of Public Works.
Yeah.
So all things seem to be in good order. We remain stuck on the issue on the fee. One solution to the problem was to agree that the fee would be collected once we hit the final step in the process of the street acceptance process. The issue there is, well, the fee is due unconditionally, so we certainly can, as a city, say that we would make it a conditional obligation to pay the fee. I think Attorney Vini will speak better to his point than I would, but his point expressed to me has been, it's been going on far too long. We want the street accepted. We will pay, but we'll pay when it's done. And then we came to the other issue of, how about the rest of my money? Can the developer have the rest of his money back? So I explained to Attorney Davini, I'm glad that I'm not a decision maker. You folks are the decision makers. I would be extremely surprised if we found that there was a condition or there was a failure that we needed the performance bond to fulfill. Again, we've already talked about that the streets is acceptable. However, I couldn't put myself in a position where I agreed to release the money and then some constituency comes to us or some issue arises, then we need the performance bond to effectuate final repairs or whatever might need to be done. So, so that's what the issues were. In the meantime, Attorney Avini and I have an escrow agreement.
Yes.
The bond money is standing with Attorney Avini and at the in his client trustee IOLTA account where it's safe, and we can't distribute it until we have an agreement or some resolution of the street acceptance process. My personal recommendation would be to make a clear component in the escrow agreement that the fee be paid to the city of Fitchburg upon the conclusion of the street acceptance process, and reserving in the city's rights the right to claim the fee outstanding. And the gentleman would also want to reserve for his client the right to claim that the fee's not outstanding. It's been far too long, and it's been the city has issued permits and has issued occupancy permits for the buildings that for the buildings in which the fee was to be paid. So long story short, that was my initial suggestion, and I think Attorney Avini wants the release of the money, not including the $4,500.
Right. And just to be clear, folks, we have no problem tendering the $4,500. We've spoken about that. Our issue is the street is fully completed. The DPW director has indicated there's no issues. We got a very short window before the city's going to accept it. And again, these funds have been in limbo for better than 15 years. So my client is fully on board. We can sign an escrow agreement. We've talked about that, where I will deliver the $4,500 to Attorney Pusateri. He can hold on to it. As soon as the street, I think you call it the final step, as soon as the final steps reached, that can be released. And my proposal is just simply, when we sign the escrow agreement, I can disperse the balance to my client, which is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of $21,000 or $20,000 minus my fees for the work I've done to make Attorney Pusateri, I don't think happy, but giving him everything he needs to get the acceptance in place. And I think that's quite fair. Again, you know, this developer went above and beyond on this road. He actually, part of it, what he told me today when I was speaking to him, is he actually paved, this is Ethier Street Extension. He paved a large portion of Ethier Street before the extension, so it all blend in. And I think he told me that cost him somewhere between $35,000 and $40,000. He also brought sidewalks down 1.5 times farther towards Townsend Street than he was supposed to, just to make the neighborhood more appealing. And again, you know, Attorney Pusateri brought up, he built a rather nice stone wall. I haven't been up there for a while, but you know, it came out pretty nice, and the project looks nice. So where we're at is, I don't have any authority to sign an escrow agreement unless he gets the balance of the funds that I'm holding.
So just to clarify, we have two escrow agreements. One is everything's locked up. With Attorney Avini, he's holding on to it. And so what we were trying to do is modify that agreement or sign a second one, as Attorney Avini just expressed, where we would take the 45 and segregate that to one side. And then I would say, hold on to the money until the project is over. And Attorney Avini, not unreasonably saying, release the money to me now. It's been with the city for 15 years.
That's a fair summation.
As far as DPW concerned, the developers met all of the requirements that we've imposed, save for the detention bond fee. You know, they've pulled permits for and completed all the utility connections. They've installed the property boundaries to indicate the edge of the right-of-way and the start of private property. They've produced all of the record plans that we've required. They've recorded this stuff with the Registry of Deeds. So there's nothing outstanding on DPW's end. And actually, I'll mention too, they've maintained this detention pond, over the past 15 years. I think the contractor's actually gone out there and cleared the vegetation 3 or 4 times at this point, because we're constantly getting closer and closer to doing this, but haven't actually gotten it done. And every growing season that passes is another season that he's got to go out there and clear out the vegetation that's grown back and whatnot. So I think it's a little bit unfair to move the goalposts on the developer when, 15 years ago or so, when this was in front of the planning board, everything was agreed upon. The developers upheld his responsibilities. I think now it's time to uphold our responsibilities.
Thank you. Councilor Schultz?
A couple of comments on the petition itself. We've got either street instead of Ethier, and we need to change that in both places.
I noticed that. I didn't draft it, so I don't want to throw anybody on the bus, so. And plus, I'm out of uniform because I don't have a shirt and tie on, so I apologize for that.
Good catch.
The other thing is as far as the 4,500, that is just for the detention pond fee. That's not for the I&I fee.
Well, what happened is when you go back and look at the planning board approval, I don't know where the disconnect was, but there was no I&I fee in the planning board approval.
Okay.
So we actually sat here one night and went through all the approvals out in the hallway, and we came to the conclusion, and then your city solicitor circled back with the planning board, and they said, yeah, but we still want to collect the 4,500. To be honest, it's a kind of a bitter pill for my client because he got building permits, and they're asking us to produce records from 12, 13 years ago, and we don't have them. So as a concession, he said, just to make this work, we'll pay the 4,500.
Yeah. So we have on DPW's end sewer connection permits, fees paid, and typical practice is that at the time of issuance of a sewer connection permit, that's the opportunity to collect an I&I fee or require some sort of I&I mitigation work. That was not done a number of years ago, and the permits were issued. So in my opinion, that's DPW waiving that requirement.
Yeah, if they didn't collect it then, they shouldn't collect it now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
There is a certain constituency out there that's pushing hard to not have private roads be accepted as public roads. I don't believe that we should do that. I think that I'd like to see more private roads accepted because I have roads in my ward that because they're private roads still, we can't use state money to pave them. So
Right.
I really believe that we should have more rather than less. So that's my opinion on that.
It gives you a certain sense of uniformity and
Yes.
consistency.
Yes.
Because without it, it's kind of a crapshoot.
It is a crapshoot, and I don't believe that's the way we should go. So I'm fully in favor of accepting Ethier Street as a
Thank you.
public way.
Thank you.
Councilor Boishman?
Well, I was up there, I checked it out. The only thing I don't like about the whole thing, I think the taxpayer, myself personally, taxpayer, are responsible for the retention pond that nobody else has any say to it, but the residents up there. I have a hard time because you guys don't have the manpower to take on another project. And I say that with all truthfulness, because I have a retention pond up in my neighborhood. It's all overgrown, and you know it, and I know it, and the neighbors complain about it, and you don't have the manpower to take. I don't like the fact that we're saying put in retention ponds, and we're going to take care of them.
It's a good point. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I do a lot of work with developers, and what a lot of communities do is through the planning board, they say to the developer, we want you to set up an HOA because the city gets an easement to get to the detention basin, but the HOA, the homeowners association, the lot owners are responsible for having a whole separate organization that will take care of the detention basins. I just finished a project in Littleton, and the town of Littleton said, we want an easement to them in case we have to go in there and repair them if there's a flood or they get clogged, but we want a homeowners association to be responsible for the annual maintenance. And it's worked. So what we do is when we develop this project, there's an initial HOA association, each homeowner is a member, and every year they elect a person in the subdivision, and they're the president of this, and they collect the fees, and they have the right to, I haven't seen it to lien, but they send out an enforcement letter, and usually it's short money. Usually if everybody throws in maybe $100, $200 a year, that's more than enough money to go in and clean them out. So to answer the question, this project it's way too late for that.
It's too late for that.
But, down the road, maybe a suggestion to the planning board is if you're doing a subdivision and there's going to be detention basins, make it a condition, and I think you can do that, right? I think the planning board has power to do that.
Absolutely, yeah.
The planning board says, if you're going to do this, you're going to form an HOA, and the HOA is going to be responsible for the detention basins.
Yeah, good
And I agree with you, because it's a pain in the neck for the DPW, because if the beavers get in there or whatever and they get clogged, it's a problem.
You lose your
I
rights.
agree with that.
But I'll tell you this right now. I'll accept it, but we're not going to maintain the middle island in the middle. You'll have to have the residents take that. He doesn't have the manpower to cut the grass or to take care of it. So if you go, I'll accept it on those conditions.
No, I get it, but that's kind of I would hope somebody up there has got a couple extra minutes to mow the lawn, but, that's the same, that would be the same scenario we just went through. If you had a homeowners association back in the day, you could have said, that's kind of a common area, and it should be taken care of by the homeowners association. I do this on a
I
regular
understand what
basis.
you're saying.
But I mean, that may be too late to do that now. I mean, actually, it is too late to do it now.
It's never too late. Never say that.
I think
You're an attorney, you ought to know
Oh,
that.
no, I think this is too late.
Not to be
Terry?
outshined by Attorney Avini, he always tries to do that to me too. But I have been telling you that this is what we should do. In fact, the planning department's aware, and they are looking at trying to either revise their own regulations or maybe even their ordinance.
I was not trying to steal anybody's thunder.
No, I'm
It's just we do this on a regular basis, and we do subdivision approval.
But to have the homeowners association, and really the issue did come to a head on the Victoria Lane area, where the contractor was going to maintain a certain area and not sell that off, and then we wound up taking it by tax title. Because that's the other thing that happens there. So,
Yeah, I agree that this project is much older, and that was never something that was put on the table, so, but I do agree that when more of these developments go in, that there should be HOAs, and it should not be placed upon the city, because, we're having a hard time taking care of what we already have, like Councilor Boschman said, and to keep adding and adding and adding isn't fair to the city either,
Yeah.
So could I just formulate the issue? I think the issue that we're asking this committee to make a recommendation on is, not only will you make a recommendation for your approval of this acceptance process, but will you condition your recommendation on one of two things? A would be for the fee to be paid, $4,500 to be paid, and the timing of that would be now or at the end of the street acceptance process. And two, whether or not the balance of the funds being held by the city should be released to the contractor at this point.
I'm holding the balance. I have the balance.
And then, but,
Subject to our escrow, our letter agreement. Right.
yes. Well, to be released to you,
Right.
yes.
Right.
So I'm asking for the timing on the payment
Yep.
of the $4,500, and I'm asking for the timing on the release. So my friend Attorney Avini would like you to vote that the $4,500, I'm sorry, am I interrupting?
No.
The $4,500 would be paid upon the final street acceptance, which requires me to prepare an order. Say that again?
No, that's fine. I mean, what we talked about is that I have no problem giving you the $4,500 by check tomorrow. You can hold it in escrow, provided I can release the balance to my client. That's the streamlined version.
Yes. But he wants me to hold that $4,500 in escrow until the street finally is accepted.
If we reach an agreement on the second part, I think the first part takes care of itself.
Okay, so the question that you're asking now is changed. So what we're asking now is a different question. Do we want to have the $4,500 paid forthwith to the city of Fitchburg with the condition that the balance of the money held in escrow be turned over to the developer? As we've heard, there's no need for performance issues at this point.
And again, we changed that a little bit, Vinnie, but after the feeling I'm getting from the panel, that's probably a fairer resolution, because then you and I are not circling back.
Yep.
We don't
And
even need
the other option is we just hold all the money until the final street acceptance project. So I think either path is extremely reasonable way to go, and I think I'm somewhat persuaded by Attorney Avini and by Commissioner Erickson that this developer has been waiting a long time to get access to that money.
Counselor Cragan?
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend this fee to be paid, that this fee should be paid, and that, the fee should be paid subject to escrow by letter agreement immediately. 15 years, immediately.
So I'm going to understand that motion as the fee would be paid forthwith, and the balance of the escrow agreement would be worked out between Attorney Avini and myself, and eventually refunding whatever left over to the contractor.
Amend my motion to reflect that this is subject to Solicitor Pusateri arranging with Attorney
Avini, yeah.
Attorney Green to create a document reflecting the final decision.
So if I'm understanding right, hold all the money until the final decision, till the end, till it's turned over?
What is easier for you?
Well, there's two paths. One is to hold all the money until the street acceptance process is over, which requires me to prepare yet another order and come back to City Council for 3 or 4 more hearings. The other option is to take the fee, get it paid right away, and then really turn over the balance of the money to Attorney Avini. The second option seems to be the most reasonable approach, because we've held on to the money for 15 years, and Mr. Erickson is telling us that the performance has been complete.
So the motion would go as such, that the $4,500 be paid to the city, and in turn, the balance of what is in escrow will be returned at
Yes.
the same time.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I was confusing on that. I apologize, Councilor.
All right.
I think there's been a lot of, and then we changed it up on us in the middle of it, so thank you.
I'm in agreement with Councillor Fleming, and I will second that motion. I withdraw my
on
first
the
motion,
motion.
and I second that motion.
On a motion.
On the motion?
Mr. Commissioner, there's nothing wrong with the street.
Not that I have observed, no.
When was the last time you were up there?
A year? I take that back. Immediately after the detention basin was most recently cleared, which I believe was this past spring,
It was April.
April?
It was shortly before the May meeting.
Yes.
I was up there 3 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and everything looks good.
And my other question is for the guy on the right, the city solicitor. Can they make the check out to the DPW? Or does it have to go into the general fund?
It's going to go to the general fund. It's going to go to the same, yes, it's going to go to the general fund. It's going to be handled consistent with the planning board's decision, which was to pay it into the detention basin pond fund. So it's not going to go in the general fund. My question, and the reason, what I'm struggling with is I don't know to a certain degree if we have a separate line item that's for the detention basin pond fund, or whether or not that's just simply part of the DPW's. Do you know that? Answer that question?
I'm fairly certain that in the cases of a situation like this, the money is put into a special revenue fund and needs to be used for that purpose. So a separate account is created and set aside for detention basin maintenance. I'm fairly certain that's how it works.
And I don't think that account has ever been created. And I think that account will need to be created with the auditor's office.
Right, and I think it's similar to planning board special permit approvals where a developer is required to, say, contribute a certain amount of dollars to off-site improvements somewhere. I think this is a similar type payment to the city where that money is held in a certain account for that certain purpose, and then the money is made available to the relevant departments.
All right.
So we're going to have to, would you make sure that, if I could ask the gentleman if he could talk to auditing and make sure we have that line item set up?
Yep.
And it doesn't matter to me who I write the check to.
No, City of Fitchburg.
Okay.
Then I'll vote for that then.
Councilor Schultz?
I'm in agreement, yeah.
Oh.
You're
And it
lucky.
passes.
I'm in a good mood.
Sorry?
No, nothing. I just said I'm in a good mood.
I'm happy about that.
Okay.
Thank
so
you very much,
we're in
folks.
agreement. You're welcome. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. No problem.
Have a good night. Okay, now we'll get on to the agenda, in its order. Oh, excuse me.
Just one clarification, I think you need to vote to accept that motion.
I thought we just
Or
did.
was it taken under unanimous consent?
Unanimous
Yeah.
consent is what you
Yeah.
implied.
Gotcha, okay, I just want to make sure. I
Okay,
get my
that's
notes
okay.
right. Thank you.
Okay, first, petition 22123. Councilor Boishman is requesting a loading area at the senior center at Elm Street, adjacent to the ramp, for loading and unloading food equipment without receiving a parking ticket. And I believe we have somebody here to speak on that? Would you like to speak to this, or would you like to have Councilor Van Hazinga speak to it?
Yes. The reason why I did get a parking ticket, and I was picking up boxes of bread to bring to Daniel Heights. And there was no place to park, so I parked in front, near the handicap place, but in front of the ramp, and I was only there 5 minutes. The second time, I parked on, what's that street on back there? Grove Street. Grove Street towards the corner, and I got another ticket the following week, and that week I had about 15 boxes of bread to bring to Daniel Street Apartments. As I noticed, and I talked to counsel across the aisle over here, the speaker, coming up and speak, I noticed the first time I got a ticket, there was a man that had a walker. He was an elderly person, and there was like an aide with him coming from the front of the building all the way around the building to go up to the ramp. Now, they have 2 parking spaces in the front, and then they have a handicap. I mean, they got the ramp, and then they got the handicaps. What they do, and sometimes what they do is they put a red cone out. Sometimes they put the red cone out inside of the handicap spots. Nobody will park there, so if they know they're going to get delivery, they can park there to make their delivery and then go away. My argument is there should be a loading zone there, because people that are handicapped can get off right there and come to the ramp instead of being on Wallace Ave side and coming all the way up the sidewalk. That's number one. Number two, my other argument is, why should you put a cone out there and I have to drive all the way around the building until the cone's gone and I can't find it? I can't find a parking space. So that's not right either. So I talked to somebody in there, but I didn't get permission to use their name. They told me that one time they had a person coming in and they were making a delivery. The party got a ticket, and he didn't feel that it was right that this party paid the ticket because they were making a delivery, so he paid the money out of his own pocket for that party. And that they believe that there should be a loading zone there and make it easier. And that's how I feel, and I believe wholeheartedly that there should be a loading zone there so people can park or people can get off, dropped off, and go right up the ramp and go up the other ramp and in, instead of going on Wallace Ave and up the street. And if they're going to complain about 2 parking spaces, well, I'll tell you what we do. Take the loading zone off of Wallace Ave, make the 2 parking spaces there, and put it on Elm Street side. Because I think it's ludicrous if you're expecting people to drive up there and park in the front of the senior center and walk up the stairs with boxes. You're asking for somebody to get hurt, especially if you're elderly and you're carrying boxes and you can't see, and you get stuff in your hands. I know. I fell down the stairs, so I know, and I'm elderly. So.
Councilor Van Hazinga.
Yeah, so I'm just here to provide some context as the Ward 4 City Councilor where this is located. And this is an area that has a very high demand of parking, or for parking rather. With the senior center right there, the uses on Main Street, the courthouse, the YMCA, there is a lot of demand for parking along Wallace Ave in this section of Elm Street. It is metered parking. There is currently 2 handicap accessible spaces on Elm Street alongside the senior center. One is at the bottom of the ramp, and one is at the corner of Elm and Wallace. There is a loading zone on Wallace on the far side, at the corner of Wallace and Elm, from the senior center, which is primarily used as a drop-off point for the MART buses that bring people to the senior center.
Okay.
And that's why that loading zone is located there. So I understand Councilor Boschman's complaint that there is no loading zone at the actual entrance to the function hall, where equipment, supplies, or handicapped individuals who can't manage stairs would have to get dropped off and come in. So I do understand the desire for a loading zone there. It makes sense to me. I have talked to the interim senior center director, and there is a concern, though, on her part that the additional parking space is more valuable than the loading zone. Because there's such a limited supply and a high demand for parking spaces there is a concern that taking away one of those parking spaces for a loading zone would be detrimental. So that is something to balance there. So I understand both sides of the argument there. I think the bigger concern for me personally is that currently the chief of police is in charge of designating loading zones and handicapped accessible parking spaces in the city. So that is the chief's purview to designate this a loading zone or not. It is technically possible for the city council to establish a loading zone. It would require insertions of text into the city code, which this petition doesn't do. So this isn't something that can just get on a list for Nick's crews to go out and put up a sign that says loading zone.
Right.
If the city council wants to take that route to establish it, it has to be specific language entered into the city code to do so. But I would caution that it's going past our process right now, which is to go through the chief of police. So I've had some discussions tying the chief of police into the conversations we've had with the senior. I don't know if Councilor Boschman has talked with him or what the current status of his opinion. I know for a while there's a holding period where the senior center director is out on leave right now, so he was waiting to get some information and feedback there. So I'm not sure what the current status is there, but my suggestion is that it should really go that route versus going through the city council, because that gets very complicated to make changes to the code and to establish this where all of the other loading zones are at the purview of the chief, which has greater flexibility because demand changes for loading zones. And sometimes going through the writing the code process is a very long process of going through different readings and writing ordinances, things like that, where the chief can wave his magic wand and have a sign go up or down.
So I guess my question would be, would this be something that would go to public safety? Because it does seem that
Yeah.
it definitely requires Sergeant Boudreau to get involved in the police department. And
Sergeant Boudreau is involved. Sergeant Boudreau is
Yes.
involved.
Technically, it'd be something that should go to Sergeant Boudreau and the chief. It's not something, I mean, the city.
that would even go to a committee.
The city council can recommend it, but it's the chief that makes the ultimate decision on whether or not it should be in place. So that's.
So the recommendation would be to hold this.
So I think that is to either, I would either give it leave to withdraw.
Yeah.
Or I would refer it to public safety, because Sergeant Boudreau attends those meetings, and have a determination there. And in that sense, this petition would be a recommendation to the chief of police in what the city council feels he should do. But it's not something that presently the city council identifies in our city code.
Any,
I was going to ask Council Boschman have you talked to the chief, directly to the chief about
I talked to the chief, and he was waiting for Sergeant Boudreau. Sergeant Boudreau came back, and he was doing a primary study on that, and he hasn't got back to me yet, or the chief has not got back to me at the time of that petition. Okay. I talked to Andy more than I have talked to the chief.
We've had a few discussions, yes.
okay, so the recommendation would be, what I would like to see is not give it leave to withdraw. Leave to withdraw and send it to safety,
Second.
correct? Yeah. Where
Could
they're,
you repeat that again, Council?
I'll give it leave to withdraw from us, but have it sent to safety.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure, Counselor Cragen can talk about process more, but I don't know if we would technically give it leave to withdraw or we would refer it to public safety.
I don't think we need to leave to withdraw because we're going to be looking at it. And I was going to say, as I seconded, I think that's actually two separate motions. So let's do this. I make a motion, we refer, sorry, you need to withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
I would make a motion that we refer this to public safety.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay, so this will be referred to public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. Second item on the agenda, 2/22/23, Councilor Fleming is requesting to repair or replace the guardrail on the north side of Pearl Hill Road just before Putts Bridge, where they just patched the road as well.
So I did take a look at this prior to the meeting today. It looks like the wooden posts have rotted out, and that's the cause for the guardrail to kind of flop over. So I agree, it does need to be repaired.
Make a motion, we accept.
Second.
On the motion? On the motion?
motion?
So are we going to replace with a wooden fence, or are we going to go with an actual guardrail?
I think the guardrail steel itself is salvageable. I think what we need to do is replace those rotted wooden posts with either the metal I-beam style or new wooden posts to match the rest. But the steel itself looks like it's in decent shape.
Yeah,
The
it's
end
not
section
rotted
looks
or
like it's in
anything.
decent shape. I think we can reuse all of those parts except for the posts that actually go into the ground.
The wooden post?
So I would recommend either wooden to replace exactly what's there, or if we might have some of the steel posts laying around at the DPW yard, which would obviously be a little bit more durable.
Yeah.
So if we have those in stock, I'd use those. If not, I'd source like a like for like and use the wooden ones.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. It's approved. 2/25/23, Andrew Kuchar, on behalf of Evan Halstead, to install more streetlights on Sheldon Road at around 455 Sheldon Road on the east side of the road.
So I took a look at this. One thing I want to note is that Sheldon Road runs east to west. So when we're describing the location of streetlights, it needs to indicate north or south. So I can assume, based on the intent, that the resident was talking about adding a streetlight on the utility pole that's on the, I believe it's the south side of the road, across from his driveway. All that being said, what I did note is that this driveway is not too far from the intersection of Sheldon and Stickney. There's an existing street light at that intersection, or on the pole nearest to the intersection that covers that intersection itself. In my personal opinion, this is a scenic roadway. Streetlights are acceptable for intersections because you want to encourage a level of safety and visibility there. But I don't feel that streetlights are appropriate for a scenic roadway such as this. I grew up on Williams Road, not too far up the street. It's a very country-ish area. I think most of the residents that live out there prefer it that way. If they wanted to live in an area that was more urban and well-lit, they wouldn't live up on Sheldon Road. So I don't recommend approval of this installation of an additional streetlight in this location. This isn't the first time we've been asked for this request, so I'm being consistent in my recommendation here. We had a similar request, I believe, on McIntyre Road.
Yeah, I was going to say, this
summer.
sounds familiar. I feel like deja vu.
So that would be my recommendation. Because it's a scenic roadway and because there's already a light at the utility pole just up the road at the intersection of Sheldon and Stickney, that we do not install another light here.
I make a motion, we go by the recommendation of the commissioner.
So
with a
that
big
would be
no.
leave to withdraw.
Leave to withdraw.
Leave to withdraw.
Yeah. I second leave to withdraw.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's withdrawn. 2/33/23, Councilors Sam Squallier and Paul Boschman to install a berm at 517 Rollstone Street, approximately 15 feet long from the fire hydrant, in front of the fire hydrant to mitigate erosion.
So I looked at this. I do agree that a berm would be appropriate here to mitigate erosion. We also did a little bit of background research, and it looks like a petition for a berm in this exact location was approved back in 2006. So I think I got back to Councillor Squalia with that information a little bit too late, and she had already put the wheels in motion for submission of this petition. So I agree with it. I'm just not sure if it's 100% necessary. If we want to make double sure that it actually gets done this time around, I would recommend approving the petition.
I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Okay,
Yep.
it's approved.
And I will note, as with a lot of our approved petitions, there's a backlog. And really, we need to start addressing that backlog in a chronological fashion, with the exception of berms that are causing extreme property damage or erosion, et cetera. In this particular location, there is some erosion, but the erosion is not as heavy as I've seen it in other parts of the city for berms that have already approved petitions. So this is not something that the resident should expect to get done immediately. It's likely something that'll have to happen next spring.
Okay, so I guess I want to ask this question because is that backlog, what's included in that backlog? Is it also the C-Click fix issues?
All of the C-Click fix issues, all of the petition issues. So what we're trying to do now is, the new superintendent has his own list based on C-Click fix and based on verbal reports, et cetera, email complaints. We need to rectify that list with the list of approved petitions that are still outstanding and come up with kind of a unified list so that we can start crossing these things off and tackling them one by one. I think we also need to supplement our crews with a third-party contractor, which we've discussed in the past. So that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at doing this off-season is trying to rectify and get a better handle on all of these approved petitions and outstanding C-Click fix requests so that we start addressing these things in a more timely fashion. And as far as a third-party contractor goes, it would be fantastic to have like a 3-year on-call contractor specifically for berm and sidewalk repairs, so that anything that our guys can't get to, we can assign to this contractor. So that's one of the things that I'm exploring right now.
So with that being said, when we file these petitions, it's not quicker. People think that if we bring it here, that the result's going to be faster if we bring it to the committee. It's actually faster to send this through C-Click fix because it's acknowledged sooner.
Yeah, I mean,
correct?
it's the same result either way. We have a certain staff resource that we could take advantage of, but they can only get so much done in a given construction season. So we try to balance the ones that absolutely need to be done with the ones that have been reported through C-Click fix and the ones that have been approved through petition. And whether it's reported through C-Click fix or it's reported through a petition process, it's on a repair list either way. It's really not faster to get it done one way versus another.
Thank you. That's why I encourage C-Click fix. This way, because if we had to cancel the meeting again, then this constituent would be waiting longer to get the answer. So I just want to stress that. Councilor Boschman, did you have a question?
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, and I was going to say two things. C-Quick fix is okay for certain things if the general public is going to put it in, but I think there should be a different setup, personally, especially when you come into potholes. We talked about that on the corner of LeGros and St. Joe. Yeah. There's a big difference between a scab and a pothole, where a pothole, people can damage their car. And I understand what Jeff said, and I understand what he said, that we just can't go from here to here to here to here when you get nothing done. But when you got a pothole that's over 3 feet by 3 feet by 5 inches deep, you have a problem, and it should be addressed, especially on a major road. On C-Quick fix, if you put that in, it could be months before you get it. Months.
Right.
I can understand the berms. As a matter of fact, I'll be quite frank with you on the berms. I don't think we should be taking any more things from berms right now, and we should be holding off until you guys start getting caught up. That's what I think. I think we're putting false hope in front of a person. I get berms 5 years, they've been waiting, and it's got all the erosion in the guy's yard. And that's on the corner of Newtonville and Oak Hill Road. And I think we're stringing along the public, and we don't have the manpower or the time to do them. And my problem, and I said it before, and I'll tell you again, and I'll tell everybody how I feel. People should put, in the wintertime, stakes in their yard, whether it's a wooden stake, one of those fancy stakes, or anything. So the guy that's plowing the snow can see it, and he'll stay away approximately a foot, and you won't hit the berms. And if you don't want to put it up, and you hit the berms, then there's a 50% cost. You pay 50%, and the city will pay 50%. We're spending money foolishly. Foolishly. We're throwing it out the window.
I'm going to call a point of order, although I really like the point you made about the stakes. I don't know if we could really enforce people getting those stakes and then charging them 50%, but I am very much in agreement with everyone having orange stakes to alert the plow crew and their plow person and city trucks to know where the driveway begins and ends, because so much of what you do, having talked to Superintendent Withington and speaking to you, yeah, that's a huge, I mean, most of what we're doing is, I don't want to say avoidable, but that's it for me. I'm going to yield the floor because we got another, 8 items.
Yeah, I don't agree with stopping having berms done, because I know there's some serious berms in my ward that people really are getting a lot of erosion, and Nick's aware of those places because I've put in petitions, and I think those particular petitions, they really need to be petitions because we need the attention towards them, and and then we can discuss it at the Public Works Committee, and then it goes to the City Council for approval. So I agree with Commissioner Erickson that we should have probably a third-party contractor coming in to help us catch up, but I'm certainly not against I don't think we should stop berm replacement at this point because we have some serious issues, Councilor Boschman, and I really think we should keep moving forward. I know it's a slow pace, and we're well aware that there is a backlog, and it is going to take some time. But I don't think the answer is to stop any more requests, because we do. I have this year had quite a few requests where I put petitions in, and they were serious erosion problems. There was one person that we just approved. I think it's in the minutes, the last minutes, and the guy's he's been dealing with erosion in front of his house for many years, and now that he's older, he just can't take care of it himself. He needs help. I mean, and we do have those issues out there, so we need to address them. I yield the floor.
Councilor Boschman,
Well, now,
please.
don't get me wrong. What I don't like to see is when we're taking, I can see sidewalks a third party, but berms I can't see. You're already spending $500,000 on repairs, counting labor, $500,000 for repairs. My problem is the roads are old. They've been paved over paved. The arch is no longer there to make the water. Sometimes the water goes all from one side instead of having a crown that goes on both sides. It goes all on one side, so you get the erosion that way. And then we're not solving any of the problems. I mean, really, we're not. I mean, I know she called me a order on me, but I maintain it. It's in. I showed you that thing before. It was a chapter something where it said 50% for berms on the one of the audience, and I gave you the piece of paper. I don't have it with me, but I gave it to you. It was given to me.
That is in the city code, I believe, that there's the opportunity for the city to cost share with a resident that's requesting a berm in front of his or her property. So that is in the city ordinance.
Okay. We're going to move on. I just want to make one last note on the C-Click fix. There's an opportunity to take pictures, so when it does go through, Public Works can see the size of the hole and what we're dealing with. I sent one in the other day of a sinkhole, immediate attention. So they do jump to those serious issues if you send it through C-Click fix rather than waiting for it to come to committee. That's all I'm saying. We're moving to the next
make
we'll be
one?
moving onward, so
You mind if I make one more?
certainly.
From the outside looking in, there's just such a high volume of petitions and C-Click Fix requests over the years that the whole system appears broken. But we are taking in petitions, we are looking at all the C-Click Fixes, we're not intentionally ignoring them, we're prioritizing them, and I think what happens a lot of times is people lose sight of the fact that their little issue, or whether it may be little or big, that's neither here nor there, but their issue is just one issue in the scope of an entire city's worth of issues. And it's the job of the DPW to try to figure out which of those issues is the most important and needs the attention using the limited resources that we have. Some issues someone might think are important, but in the grand scheme of things, they might be a little bit more minor, and they take a back seat to some of these more important issues. So if there's a sinkhole that is outstanding and it's going to swallow a car whole, that's a little bit more important than a pothole that might, be unpleasant to drive over. And those are some of the things and decisions that we need to make on our end just to manage the finite resources that we do have. And unfortunately, we don't have an open checkbook. We don't have a bottomless bench of employees that we can tap. We don't have a wealth of equipment that we can use. We have to make do with what we have, and that's what we try to do on a daily basis. I think there's definitely room for improvement with the petition process and the C-Click Fix process. And trying to merge those two lists, like I just described earlier, is something that will help that process improve. If there's other suggestions to improve that process, I'm definitely willing to hear it. I think if there is a really outstanding issue where there's a pothole on Main Street and it's popping tires left and right, I don't think either petition or C-Click Fix is the appropriate response for that. If a city councilor sees that issue, it should be an immediate email to me and Jeff Hillman saying, hey, we've got this massive issue, you got to take care of it ASAP, and then we will.
Do we have a motion to approve on this?
I make a motion we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. On to the next. 23423, Councilor Sam Squalor and Marisa Fleming to install a berm between 29 and 1 High Rock Road, approximately 140 feet to direct water on the roadway to the existing catch basin and mitigate erosion.
So I took a look at this. The road slopes downwards from 29 towards 1. On the left side of the road, if you're headed inbound, there's a hill coming down to meet the shoulder, and on the right side, the hill continues down to private property. On the right-hand side, there's a berm that stops water from eroding those private properties, but on the left-hand side of the road, there's just the edge of the road and then that slope. And the property owner has a bunch of mulch along there, and it's obvious that mulch is washing out and down into the catch basin. So I think for the sake of water quality and for the sake of minimizing erosion to that private property, a berm would be a good fit for this location. It is approximately 140 feet long or so in between those two spots that are identified in the petition. And there is a catch basin right at the bottom of the hill there, which would be a good spot to terminate the berm.
Make a motion we accept.
Second.
Councilor Schultz?
I approve.
Okay, it's approved. 23723, City Councilor Bernie Schultz on behalf of Gary Lundy of 15 Brigham Street to request temporary filling of large holes on the Charles Street sidewalk from Brigham Street to Laurel Street, followed by a complete replacement of the same section of Charles Street sidewalk.
So I did take a look at this prior to some work being done out there. Prior to the work being done, I agree that it temporarily needed to be filled, and I agree that that sidewalk in that location should be replaced. It is hot mix asphalt, so I think the best course of action would be to replace it with hot mix asphalt because it's easier to use and work and cheaper in the long run. I do believe that our hot mix crew went out there and temporarily patched the holes in the sidewalk that this petition referred to, but I didn't get a chance to go out there myself and confirm. So I was wondering if Councilor Schultz, maybe you had an opportunity.
I haven't been out there either, and I haven't heard from Mr. Lundy, so I assume that the crew filled it in, but I'll check and make sure that happened. But Mr. Lundy probably would have called me if it hadn't at this point.
Yeah, the
Because
holes.
he was worried, people were getting hurt. The holes
Yeah.
were
They were substantial.
huge. They were
Well,
substantial.
and that's on a sidewalk.
That's on a sidewalk,
yeah.
and the kids are walking up that sidewalk for the bus stop at the
Right.
corner, so I think one of his grandchildren got hurt on one of the holes, so.
So
he was
my
very
my
concerned.
suggestion, we've got that temporary intersection configuration out there right at the end of Charles Street, at the intersection with Laurel. It would be great to work in making that change permanent with some sort of an island and a relocation of that stop sign permanently, and also doing that section of sidewalk right there. And like I said, I think in the interest of doing it in a cost-effective fashion, it would be leaving the existing curbing that's there, ripping out the asphalt, compacting the subgrade, and putting the asphalt back. I think that's the quickest and cheapest way to do it, and the most effective to accomplish what we're intending to with this, which is to make sure people don't get hurt.
Thank you. Councilor Boishman?
Question, which side are we talking about, Bernie? I was up there today. I was on the right side or left side?
The right side,
Right?
going up to the corner of Laurel.
Because there was a bunch of cars parked on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
they
that
were-
right side. I'm fairly certain it was.
I thought it was the left side, because the left side, I think, is terrible.
Left side's not great either.
But this was really terrible. There was 3 huge holes on
Yeah, but
that
I was
right side.
looking for them, and I couldn't see it.
Well,
'cause there were
they probably
cars-
filled them in.
like, there were cars parked on that sidewalk, so I couldn't tell.
The left side, I believe, is concrete.
Yeah, concrete and asphalt.
It's very narrow concrete.
Yeah.
It's like the 2.5 foot, 3 foot wide section, and then there's a little gap between that and the.
Especially in front of the last house, not the last house, is one, it's, the concrete's all tore up and it sinks in.
Yeah, but
You ought to fix that too for the guy, because it's all sunk in front of the guy's steps, right across the street.
I mean, if you want to amend the petition to include both sides of the street within that Brigham to Laurel Street area, I would agree with that.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, let's amend it to the left side of the street. I mean, that's actually where I grew up, was on that left side of the street as well.
So you did the right side already, but we're going to amend it to the left side, because that's really what...
We temporarily patched the right side, but
The right side was in worse condition
okay.
than the left side.
petitions for a permanent repair as well. So I think, temporary patch the right side and then permanently repair both sides within that range
All
from
right,
Brigham
can I-
Street to Laurel.
Can I get a,
Can you hold on to one minute?
that's a different,
That's a different
that would be a different petition.
petition. Yeah, we're gonna do from Brigham to Laurel.
But I would suggest,
it's on Charles.
I would suggest putting in a C-click fix with the picture,
Yeah.
and it will get done.
Well, it's his ward, I
Yeah,
just
I'll
don't...
do it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I went
that
the
would-
wrong
Take a
way.
look at it. Thanks
Is
for
there a bad
reporting.
sinkhole over there?
There's a sinkhole, yeah.
Yeah, let us know where that is,
Yeah.
whichever method you.
I'll take a look tomorrow at it and see
They're
what's
really
going
good
on.
with the sinkholes.
Yeah, well, there was 3 huge holes on this that
So we
Nick
need
was gonna
to
fill.
have a motion to amend.
Amend it,
And-
to make a permanent repair on the other side of the street, from Brigham to Laurel Street.
Do I have a-
Second.
Second.
Counselor Boishman?
I'm all in favor of it,
Okay.
that's why I brought it up.
Okay. It passes. 23823, Counselor Paul Boishman to replace a berm at 19 Frankfurt Street.
So I took a look at this. What's out there right now is a hot mix asphalt berm with a hot mix asphalt sidewalk section behind it. The sidewalk is really a sidewalk to nowhere. It only exists in front of a couple of houses out there. So my suggestion would be, it's very difficult to replace just the berm and not the sidewalk behind it in the case of an sidewalk asphalt berm. So my suggestion would be to modify the petition to include replacement of the berm and sidewalk in front of 19, and it also expand that to include the small section of berm and sidewalk on either side of number 19. So I think it's 144 Pratt to 15 Frankfurt, so that stretch right there. And there'll probably be some apron work required in addition to that. So it's essentially a span of 3 to 4 properties.
That's where that new development is taking place, with the condos in that area? Is that the
No,
same
it's
area?
on the other side of the street.
The other end, yeah.
It's the other end?
Yeah, that's 50 Frankfurt, I believe.
Okay.
Motion to replace the berm and sidewalk Motion to amend the motion. All right, motion to amend the motion. Let's vote on that.
To add the berm,
To add, to
add a berm and sidewalk on either side of the property.
extend, including 144 Pratt, down to 144 Pratt.
Right.
Yeah. Frankfurt to
Second.
144 Pratt.
Second?
Second.
On the motion. Now, my question to him is it going to be done this year? Because the guy doesn't want his driveway to get hit. You saw it. He doesn't want his driveway hit this winter.
There's no way we can do it this year. It's too late in the season. We've already got the repairs that are outstanding and we're planning to do this year scheduled. We just don't have enough manpower to shift in an extra section of
All right.
berm and
I'll
sidewalk.
tell him that. I'll go over his house and tell him it won't be this year. All right.
All in agreement?
Okay,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, this passes. 24623, City Councilor Bernie Schultz on behalf of Pam Lawrence of 566 Milk Street, and Rosemary Reynolds of 570 Milk Street to request removal of dying trees, one tree in front of 566 Milk Street and the second tree in front of 570 Milk Street, and to also include the sidewalk repair once the two trees are removed. Councilor Schultz?
Yeah, I visited that area, and the trees there, it's the tops of the trees that are dead. And of course, they've impacted the sidewalk as well. They've heaved the sidewalk at both locations. So I know we've got a lot on the plate, so I know that it's not going to be done this year, but I thought I would put it in, and hopefully the new tree warden would take a look at those trees in the spring, and, well, maybe as the leaves come off, maybe he can take a look now. The leaves are still on the,
Yeah, I was up there.
yeah.
So with a recent petition approval on Water Street, what I've learned is that the city council, with all due respect, doesn't have the authority to decide whether to take a tree down in the city or not. That decision rests solely with the tree warden.
Good.
If constituents disagree with the tree warden's decision, they can appeal to the mayor's office, and the mayor can conduct a public shade tree hearing and has the final say. So we can approve this petition in a sense, but we can't use the petition as a way to force the decision of the tree warden. So we've got to be careful about how we word this. I visited the site. I agree that it appears to me that the trees are dying. I'm by no means a certified arborist, so I'd like to get the opinion and approval of the tree warden. And then I agree that the sidewalk panels have been buckled and popped by the root ball for the two trees there. And removal of the trees would warrant replacement and repair of those sidewalk panels there.
So should we amend it, Nick, to say, subject to the approval of the tree warden?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would recommend that.
You want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion to,
Second.
subject to the approval of the tree warden.
Okay. So I guess I do want to make it clear that if the tree warden decides the tree is healthy, then that's it. Unless.
As far as our approval, but the residents can.
Right,
you
the
said,
residents could
can
appeal to the mayor's
mayor.
office.
Yeah.
So there was a petition related to a tree on Water Street. The petition was approved to take the tree down and repair the sidewalk, but the tree warden actually disagreed that the tree needed to come down. It's actually healthy, and he didn't approve taking that down. So that's caused a little bit of issue on our end, just because we've got an approved petition, but the tree warden said no, so we're kind of stuck. So Councilor Schultz and I kind of came up with a workaround to repair the sidewalk and leave the tree, but it doesn't fully address the intent of the petition, and I think the resident still would prefer to see the tree taken down. So I just want to make everyone aware that that's the issue that we're kind of dealing with in this case too.
And it's all over the city, that issue where the tree heaves the sidewalk and the resident wants the tree down because, that particular situation we're talking about on Water Street, the sidewalk is really heaved there where
It is.
It really is a public safety issue, because especially at night, somebody could really get
Right,
hurt.
yeah.
on that.
Yeah, and it's not ADA compliant because the tree doesn't provide that 36-inch clear path width around it, let alone the unevenness of the sidewalk with the root ball and all that.
Yeah. So hopefully we can keep the tree and and somehow repair that sidewalk so it's not a public safety hazard anymore.
Yeah, we'll have to build the base up around it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the amendment. It's been, everyone agreeing with everybody?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. And on to the held petitions. 12733, City Councilor Bernie Schultz and Police Sergeant Dan Boudreau request that the Department of Public Works and the School Department work collaboratively to ensure the widening of Monroe Street to accommodate increased vehicular traffic from South Street School.
So since our last meeting, the schools department has cleared the brush needed out there, but the fence remains. But I've talked to Jeremy Roach from the school department. He's agreed that schools will do whatever is needed to help DPW accomplish the widening of the roadway there. So I think at this point, the petition is in a good spot to receive a formal approval, and we can get it on our work list. I don't think it's going to be something that happens this fall, but I think it's something that we can get done next spring.
And actually, you know, some work has already been done as far as at the corner there with the catch basin. Gary Withington made sure that that particular corner was ready for the widening as well.
Right.
So that's something that can be at least looked at soon.
Right, so I think, you know, as far as order of operations goes, first step is to take down the fence. Second step is to dig out the dirt and all that stuff that's there. Third step would be to put down a good subgrade, compact it, and then the last step would be to pave it, install a berm and pave it.
Yeah. So the school department will take that fence down, Nick? Or?
That's what Jeremy indicated to me.
Okay.
He's got a new facilities director that just started, from what I understand, and that new person has experience in a similar role. I believe he worked for WPI out in Worcester Polytechnic Institute for a while. So it sounds like he's familiar with these types of issues and can help us get this done.
So we just need the formal motion to approve this.
Yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Councilor Boishman?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, it's approved. 19323, City Councilor Andrew Kuchar on behalf of Bev Hoffa to replace the berm in front of 466 Franklin Road to combat runoff from Oak Hill Road.
So this one, I have not had a chance to follow up with the resident. Councilor Schultz has given me her phone number, and I just have not had time to call her and meet her out there. I would like to do so before we make a decision here, but I will note that we intend to conduct some sidewalk replacement work out there, as we discussed earlier. Councilor Boschman mentioned a grant that the city obtained from Mass DOT. So there is some work in that immediate vicinity that will be done, and you know, if this definitely warrants it, perhaps there's an opportunity to get this work done next spring while we're out there doing sidewalk work across the street anyways. So I plan to meet with Bev Hoffer at some point in the very near future before winter starts.
You said
So
there was a berm there at one time, and
There was,
it's
yeah.
been gone for some time.
Yeah.
And water does flow down Oak Hill, across the Cleghorn Pizza property, and then makes its way down that direction. And she does have a large catch basin grate right at the bottom of her driveway. What I just want to make sure is that there's nothing else in addition to the berm that might be required. So I don't know if she needs a driveway apron also. So I want to fully understand the scope of work and the problems that she's experiencing before we just sign off on a berm.
Motion to hold this petition until
Yeah.
Commissioner Erickson can investigate.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And final petition that was held, Councilor Fleming, on behalf of several residents, employees, and non-residents of Fitchburg, Mass, a petition to add streetlights or a roundabout to the intersection of North Street, John Fitch Highway, and Pearl Hill Road and John Fitch Highway to mitigate traffic concerns, accidents, and pedestrians crossing safety during daytime hours. With the increase in traffic, this discussion needs to take place before a tragedy occurs.
Yeah. So we've had our engineering consultant, Fussin O'Neill, working on design concepts for a roundabout at this location. At this point, they've produced 5 different concepts for us to review. I forwarded that to different city departments to get their input on. I think I've gotten feedback from police and fire at this point, and their preferred concept. It seems like police and fire are both in agreement. So the next step is to work with the engineering consultant to flush out that final concept, make sure that's definitely the direction that we want to go. And then the last step would be to find construction funding to get this done. So their scope of work includes preparation of the bid documents, but without construction funding, we can't actually realize this project and get it built. So I think the next step would be to look for that funding. I don't think it matters one way or another whether this continues to be held or is approved. I think, you know, the petition is on the same page with where we're headed as a DPW anyways for this particular intersection. So
Motion to approve, then. Motion to approve. So
Yeah.
that we don't have to look at it. We know it's on the.
Second, and
I got one question. How come, we put a light, well, before you were council, we put the extra street light on the crosswalk, on the corner of Pearl Street and John Fitch Highway, because there's one on Pearl Street already,
The
right on the
blinking lights.
corner, a little bit up. But right next to it, there's another light, they put another street light so people can cross. My question is, how come, maybe you know, maybe you don't know, I was surprised since the university rents the Civic Center, and that's where they allow all the parking, that they didn't go for the, what do you call those plaques? RTV, the plaques where you press the button where people can cross the street safely.
Oh, the RRFBs,
Yeah, those,
retro-reflective flashing beacons.
yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not sure of the history of that particular intersection and why what's out there right now has been done. I think the tall curbs are intended to slow down traffic along with the lights that were installed. I don't know why those types of devices weren't installed in the past. I think it was MRPC that conducted an intersection analysis of this particular location. They had recommended a roundabout way back, I think it was 2014 that study was done.
Right.
So I think the intent has always been to try to improve pedestrian safety and then vehicular safety through the implementation of a roundabout. I think it's just been sitting for the past 10 years, a little less, just because of the funding issue. No one's really championed the project and
Oh, I thought,
figured it out.
I thought Mass DOT was going to take care, do that project. That's what I thought.
Not this one. So DOT, we're designing the section of John Fitch in between Summer Street and Lunenburg Street to obtain DOT construction funding. But this one, the design was funded through ARPA, so that's where we got the money for the engineering consultant. But we don't have any source of construction funding identified. So we could go after a DOT grant. A lot of times, DOT has certain requirements that make projects either incredibly expensive or not feasible to construct. And this, I believe, is one of those requirements, just due to the right-of-way issues. We'll need to acquire some land out there in order to construct this the right way. Pedestrian crossings and other certain complete streets directives, I think it would make this project very difficult to actually implement and probably cost twice as much. So we're trying to design it without going towards the DOT tip route. So it might be a good candidate for other construction grant funding, which we'll keep our eyes open for over the next couple months once we've got a design ready to go. It's just a matter of finding the right grant program that's a good fit for it. So I think having the university there, they've got their facility up on North Street. They've also got their athletic facility on Pearl Hill Road, and then they've got the Civic Center down the other side of John Fitch. So there's that. You've got some housing communities over there. There's, the Gables and a few other different areas of residential. And I think it checks a lot of boxes potentially for a grant program. So if we can find construction funding through that way, I think that'll be ideal. The other option would be to use Chapter 90 or something like that, but that would chew up a big portion of our Chapter 90 budget.
We won't do that.
Yeah.
Right, Melissa?
what's that?
We won't do that, right?
We're going to get this done, okay.
I did make a motion to approve.
Yeah.
Did I get a second?
Did we have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's approved.
Make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
This concludes our agenda for this meeting. The next regular meeting of Public Works is scheduled for Tuesday, November 28th at 5 p.m. Thank you.